The path illuminates as you walk it. You have to take those first steps. Then you'll start to see what your conscience tells you or what feels good. Also, the work always comes before the belief. You aren't going to have much belief in yourself, confidence in yourself until you start taking that action.
This is A Joyful Rebellion, the podcast that explores that moment you realize the life and success you worked so hard to create didn't come with all the fulfillment you thought it would. I'm your host, James Walters, and I want you to be the author of your own story. Each week, I connect with people who inspire bold answers to the question, what do I do now to create a life I love? If you're ready to start answering that question for yourself, you're in the right place. So let's start a joyful rebellion. What if the hardest moment in your life could be the one that saves it? After a near-fatal car crash left him hospitalized for weeks and unable to walk, Austin Page realized it was time for a different kind of transformation. One that started with rebuilding his body, but ultimately rewired his mind and reshaped his identity. Today, he's a mindset-driven coach, helping others get unstuck by showing them the power of consistent action, real accountability, and daily deposits into the future version of themselves. In this conversation, we explore the link between physical growth and mental strength, and the trap of saying, it's not that bad, and how to build the kind of self-belief that actually sticks. If you're ready to stop waiting for motivation and start creating momentum, this episode's for you. All right, Austin Page, welcome to A Joyful Rebellion.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, I want to talk to you today about the whole concept of creating a new identity, because that's something you know a lot about. On this podcast, a lot of the guests I talked to, they had some sort of inciting incident. And there was some period in their life, and everyone has that, where sometimes it's a slow burn. Sometimes it's a really beat you over the head kind of moment where you say, you know what, I need to leave the life I had and I need to figure out where I'm going to get more life out of life. You even say that in your bio. I want to read exactly the way you put it so we can set it up. You said basically through rebuilding your body, you rebuilt your mind, and as a result, rebuilt your life.
Yeah.
So many of the people I talk to on this show, they've had their own joyful rebellion, just like you did. And then they want to take that energy, they want to take everything they learned through that process, and they want to help other people do it for themselves.
Yeah.
So just tell us a little bit about what brought you to that point in your life where you realized you couldn't go on doing the same things you'd been doing.
Everybody's journey or flip of the switch is going to be different. But for me, I had to learn the hard way. And a lot of people do. I was a lot younger, in my early 20s, when this moment or event took place that I was like, man, things have to change. I was going down a path to nowhere quick. In my early 20s, I was just graduated high school, going through college, no real purpose or passion or like goals for myself besides doing like the normal thing. Oh, I need to go to college to get some basic degree. And I didn't know what I wanted to do with myself. And I really didn't like myself because throughout high school and even into college, I was always looking for happiness in the same place I was losing it, which was partying, drinking, drugs, chasing after things that just weren't giving me any return. In the moment, they felt good, but the next day or in the long term, they sabotaged me. And I didn't realize that, because you're getting this false confidence, this false happiness through some of these things. And, that might be food for some people. It might be other bad habits. But for me, it was hard into living Thursday through Sunday. Not even taking steps forward during the week, but always taking steps backwards on the weekends on myself, sabotage. And looking for the party, looking for the drink, looking for the girls, chasing things that weren't making me happy. And I thought they were. Long story short, I wanted to leave a party one night because I had indulged quite a bit. And typical story, I hopped in my car and made it a mile away from home and ran off the road, drunk driving. I don't remember the wreck. I didn't hurt anybody else. Nobody else was on the road. I didn't hit anybody. It was just me in the car. And I just ran off the road, flipped. And from there, I was sent to a hospital where I was at the hospital for about 6 weeks, ruptured intestines, broke both my legs from the knees down, left ankle fracture, woke up with a gaping hole in my stomach. And I realized that, man, I'm not 10 foot tall and bulletproof. I'm actually Superman. I'm not this invincible guy. All my decisions added up to me being in the hospital bed. So I realized the way I was going wasn't right. And at the moment, I still didn't feel like it was real. I wasn't sure of my future either, of like, what's my future outside of this? Am I going to be back walking Am I going to be able to eat normal food? Am I going to have a normal life? And through that hospital journey or stay, had a lot of thinkings, like internal self-reflection. Was moved from that hospital stay after 6 weeks to a rehab center to where I lived there for 2 months. During that 2-month rehabilitation stay is where most of the change or the flip of the switch happened. And in that rehab center, I was bedbound. When I first moved there, I still couldn't get out the bed. I still wasn't weight bearing. I was just staying in the bed 24 hours a day. What started to flip the switch was physical therapists would come into my room every morning once I got to that rehab center, and they'd say, Austin, you're in bed. You aren't just going to sit there all day. We're going to start getting your way out of here. We're getting your ass out of here. You're too young. You've got a lot of life ahead of you. We're going to start strengthening you, building some confidence back in you. And at first I was like, oh, screw that. Like, that's the last thing I was working out or doing something that, like, you know, because I'd already lost a ton of muscle, a lot of confidence in myself. I wasn't feeling great about myself, definitely at that point. But they brought in these rubber bands. I'd do some stuff in the bed. And it got to a point where I was able to get more weight bound and get into a wheelchair. Once I was able to get in the wheelchair, they'd come in my room and say, Austin, you're going to hop your ass in the wheelchair. You're going to roll yourself down to the gym. We're going to do some weights in your wheelchair. Doing things uncomfortable, little adversities, little struggles each day that, you know, weren't these huge hurdles looking back on it. But at the time I was like, man, that's the last thing I felt like doing. But each day I went down there, I was forced down there at first. I started to feel better about myself. I started to build confidence in myself. I started to see the strength, progress in myself. I started to notice how my brain felt. I started to feel good. You know, I didn't have this false confidence anymore that looking back on it, that a lot of things I was chasing. Now I was doing something that was actually building me and more mentally than it was physically. Of course, the physical was there, but one thing after another, one day after another, I built more confidence, was able to start walking with crutches, walking with parallel bars, and where I was released about 2 months later after I first got there. And I was able to walk out of there with crutches, which at the time, me going into that rehab center, the doctors had told me that you might have to walk with a cane moving forward. You might have some limited mobility with your legs. We're not sure. So that beat them up pretty bad. And fortunately, luck, age, youth was on my side. I was able to bounce back and one day at a time, build myself back up to walk out of there. And I started to grow a habit of building myself. And I noticed how that made me feel on the inside. I didn't hit the ground running and just say, oh, I'm now this super fitness conscious, disciplined person. But I started to notice there's habits that build you and there's habits that are anchors or pull you back. And the more I leaned into those habits of building myself, the better I felt. So I leaned into that. Once I left that rehab center, I got a job at a gym and got a front desk job that came with a free membership. Started to learn the ropes about the gym, started to meet people, how to work out, how to get consistent, how to build routines, how to eat better. And over time, again, months, years of that knowledge, I was like, you know what? I was working a bunch of side jobs up until that point with the front desk job. I was like, you know, I want to personal train. I see how much it's impacted my life and I enjoy this so much. I want others to see or be able to open their eyes to like how developing themselves is the first place to start. Because yes, we can build businesses, we can build career, we can build other things outside of our physical body. But if we aren't developing ourselves mentally and physically, which is like truly the only thing we truly have in this world is our body and our mind, not much else is going to matter if you aren't happy with what you see in the mirror. And not to say we have to be some aesthetic Greek god, but if you are at least on the path of developing yourself, on the journey, consistently on the journey, you're going to feel a lot better about yourself than if you weren't going to be doing that.
Yeah, for sure. And I'd love to back up just for a minute and call out something in case it just floated or breezed right past anyone listening right now. So many of the conversations I have on this podcast with people who did come to that decision point where they had to figure out, okay, what am I going to do moving forward? A lot of times they didn't have, like you described when you were in that rehab facility, the fact that you weren't motivated to start working on yourself, to start using those weights and doing the things. People came in, they gave you the things to do. You took action and that action led to your motivation. And that point is really buried deep within a lot of the conversations I have on this, but it seems like it comes up so much. Someone took action. They were uncomfortable. They didn't enjoy it at first, but then they saw the difference it made. You started seeing the difference it made pretty quickly. Cause I mean, even 2 months in a wheelchair in rehab, that's not a long time over the course of your life, but it dramatically changed the course of your life. So I just want to highlight that with a really bright highlighter marker, and anyone listening, just, hey, motivation follows action. That takes us back where you are now in the story, you're training. What did that start to do for you when you went from working on yourself, developing, growing yourself, and now you are helping other people do it? What was that like?
I'm going to definitely jump into that. But what you mentioned about the action, the motivation follows the action. I agree with that 100%. And what I like to think is at that point in time of me being bedbound, not unsure about my future and like who I was going to be, what the next steps were, the path illuminates as you walk it. You have to take those first steps and then you'll start to see what your conscience tells you or what feels good, right? And then also the work always comes before the belief. You aren't going to have much belief in yourself, confidence in yourself until you start taking that action. Once you take that first step, you're like, okay, I did that. Damn. Okay. I got a little bit more confidence built in me. It's almost like a video game character. You have like these points or these tallies. You start at 10% confidence skill level. And then you take that next journey or that next level or that next whatever action step, and you add another 10, 15% to your confidence level. It's like any other skill. It's developed over time and through action, striking that knife across the sharpener, one strike at a time. But getting into personal training, it was different at first because I was working with a lot of people coming from different backgrounds. Not everybody went through a traumatic event like me, and they didn't have that hard back against the wall moment of needing to change. And even I can get caught in this part of life. And a friend of mine had mentioned it to me a while back and explained it. It's called the region beta paradox. A lot of people can get caught up in this thing. And the region beta paradox is this: it's good enough. I'm not that fat. I'm not that overweight. It's not that bad. I make okay money at this job. The job's not that bad. My relationship, it's okay. It's not that bad. You can put it into anything, right? And a lot of people, especially when I started to get into this, they needed to have somebody that didn't coddle, that told them the truth. And sometimes the truth is empowering. And it might seem mean, not that I was, hey, you're fat as shit, do something about it. But like saying, hey, you have these things that you say that you want to work on, but it's not enough pain to change. And that's what I started to realize as I got into personal training, is that it was more than the physical work. It's mindset training. Like we're having to create a new identity within ourselves, a new daily process or standard of living. And what I like to break down to maybe give an analogy is making yourself a new brand book for yourself or a new guidebook. Like let's say, for example, a brand book for something like Harley Davidson, the motorcycle company. Everybody most likely knows what Harley looks like. They have the orange, they have the black, you know what their logo looks like, you know what they stand for, you know what they do, and you probably know what they don't do. Having something like that, what does Austin do now? What is the future Austin that I want to be like? Or that person that I admire and look up to? What does that person do? And I'm going to start building my book, my daily habit book off of that, the things to do and the things that I'm going to try and start removing. And it's not going to be a complete 180. It's just, we're trying to add a couple good habits and try and remove a couple bad ones and just trying to be aware of it, noticing that, okay, regret should be our guide. After I do something, I overeat or I skip that meeting or that phone call or that workout, I didn't feel that great about it. Or I skipped that event, that family outing, whatever it might be. Let me be the person that holds their word to themselves or to others now, because I feel better when I do that. Let me be more aware about that. It's a skill. It's something that has to be developed over time. You have to be aware about it. Having that sort of brand book of like, whoever you admire do, what would Jesus do type of thing. You're not trying to be religious or anything. But that saying, insert whoever, what would so-and-so do?
Well, I like that because on this podcast, in the opening, in the intro, I say, I want people to be the author of their own stories. And part of what that means is when you are writing a script to a movie or writing a book, writing any kind of story, you have to develop the characters. And we're all the main character in our own movie, right? And I know I'm just as guilty as anyone of sort of floating through life, being like, okay, this is good. This is comfortable. This is, like you said, good enough, until you get to the point where something's not good enough. And then you say, okay, how do I change it? And then you realize you can't change it. You can only change yourself.
Yes.
And then things tend to change when you start to change yourself. Things externally tend to change. It's kind of like magic. And it's one of those things I talk about so much with my guests. It's simple, not easy.
Yes.
Which is why it's so important to go through some of the steps like you're talking about. Just go through and literally build this character who ends up being you. You build this character. What are their habits? What do they do? Where do they go? How do they spend their time? What kind of stuff do they like or not like? And sometimes we can't control what we do and don't like. Some people just don't like, eating salmon. Some people love sushi and some people are like, oh, why would you do that? So likes and preferences are a little bit of a squishy scenario, but what you do every day is not. And you want to make sure you align that with character you want to be. So that's cool. I'm glad you brought that up.
Thank you.
I'm fascinated to know what happened when you started working on yourself and then you progressed to helping other people work on themselves. What was it like when you started to see people transform what they wanted to be? Because you talked a little bit about, and I have to say, it was about a year ago, I had a podcast that I did, and it was pretty vulnerable because I had a personal trainer probably about 2 years ago, and I didn't hit any of my goals because, as I discovered through some reflection, I was interested in change, but I wasn't committed. And we talked a lot. The whole episode was about excuses. And so I got on and I was like, okay, with your clients like me who didn't hit all the goals that they wanted to hit in the amount of time, what is common among them? And the commonality was they had an interest in it, but they didn't have a real commitment because they didn't want to go through that list, like rewrite the brand book. You're saying they just wanted it to happen. And so I'm guilty of that. Anyone listening for the first time, I'm not here saying I'm good at this at all, which is why I talk to people like you. But when you did start to see the changes in people, did that just get you really amped up?
Oh, of course. It literally puts fuel to the passion, fuel to the fire. And what I want to mention is I'm not perfect either, man. I'm no saint. I have a lot of clients. They jokingly say it. Maybe some of them are pretty serious. I'm Mr. Perfect to them. Oh, Mr. Perfect, Mr. Perfect. And it's like, no, you can't compare your level 1 or your level 3 to my level 10. I've been doing it for over a decade, so I've built some habits and it's taken me time. I started off just like everybody else, red-blooded. I hadn't worked out at all before this, but there's something about when those excuses would hit me and even my clients that would fall through these little seasons or valleys of where they're like a little unmotivated or realizing for anything in life, not just your fitness, but your career, your job, your financial, whatever other goals you might have. We are the reason for our problems, but we're also the solution to our problems. Our decisions, our actions are the reason for our problems or the reason for our progress. And we have to just take accountability and realize that the better version of you, whether that, I'm not saying you have to be in here and be some power lifter, some bodybuilder, but the better mentally, physically version of you will always be able to do anything you choose to do that much better. And keeping that in mind that like, all right, there's an opportunity cost ahead of me for me to get to that next level version of James or Austin. There's going to be an opportunity cost there. There's going to be a sacrifice, as other people might put it. I call it an opportunity cost. Yeah. The opportunity cost is, all right, I'm going to have to maybe not eat out as much as I have been, or have to wake up a little bit earlier to get that workout in before work or dropping the kids off. There's things that are in our control that we can definitely focus on and try and put blinders on the rest of the bullshit. Focusing on what we eat, what we drink, which we can all control, unless somebody has a gun to your head, what we do with our body and how we react to things. I mean, almost like stoic principles of a certain aspect. And again, you don't have to be perfect. It's about being aware of those decisions in the moment. What would the future Austin want me to do? That's a question I lean back into a lot with my clients and myself.
Yeah, I love that because I'm all about stoicism here. I don't talk about it. Well, it weaves its way into a lot of episodes when we're talking about principles like this. And it's, again, simple, not easy.
Not easy.
Not easy. It is easy, though, to go down the path of thinking, oh, this should be easy. Or if I was a better person, or if I was more disciplined, this would be easy. I don't think even for disciplined people, it's easy. That's why they're disciplined. They do the thing over however they feel about the thing.
Yes.
And that's so hard. That's hard for me. That's been really hard for me lately. And all my life, I guess. Let's just be real. But when it comes to the things that you see your clients, when they come in, they're just kind of interested and they want to be more fit. Let's just create a real scenario. Maybe they've gotten out of a long-term relationship and they're trying to get back into the dating world, find a partner, and they realize they've got, 20 pounds of fluff going on. And they come to you and they're like, hey man, I need to go on. And they come to you and they're like, hey man, I need to get this thing straight. I've let myself go. And then you maybe go through some of the excuses. You maybe go through some of the stuff where they're not hitting it at a level 8. They're hitting it at like level 4, but they think it's an 8 because it's hard for them. What's it like for them when they realize, okay, I've been doing this half-ass and now I understand what it's like to go at a level 8. I don't want to go at a level 10 because that would make it my life, but now I see what I need to do to get where I want to go. What do you notice? What's common among people when you see that switch hit and you see that go from interest to commitment?
So for the example that you mentioned, somebody just recently out of a relationship, added on some fluff. They've been out drinking, trying to cope with food, because food makes you feel good. It's a dopamine hit. It is for me too. But for the example of that, I would try and say, hey, we have to attract what we want. So if you want a good partner or a partner that's at a certain level that takes care of themselves, these are things that it's dependent upon the person, but I would assume you'd want somebody that's on the same level or better for the most part of the part. And to get that, you would have to attract. You aren't going to be able, most likely, unless some people go after the money, but you can only attract what you want. You really can't chase it, if you know what I'm saying. So to attract it, I'm not saying about the looks either. I'm talking about your habits. Would a partner want somebody that's always a couch slob or like a person that's just a little bit lazy and half-assed about their efforts and their habits? Or would you be attractive if you were that 8 out of 10? If you had some type of discipline and they saw you getting after your own goals, like, damn, people want to be around that, guy or girl. I want to be around people that are active, that are disciplined, that are sharpening my skills in some aspect. Or not saying everything's transactional again, but hopefully I'm not butchering it too much, but attracting. And the way to do that is by following through on your goal as best as possible to level up yourself. Because you wouldn't be able to probably find the partner that you truly want or truly admire or desire if you aren't probably going at least somewhat in on yourself.
Yeah.
That personal switch is probably going to be when they realize their inputs equal their output. All right, that number 4 I'm getting is only giving me 4 output. Am I happy with that? No. Okay, we have to look in the mirror then and go, again, we're the reason for our problem or our certain seat that we're sitting in life, and we're also the solution. I can just do more work. Like maybe I'm manic because I do a lot of internal talk like this, and it's taken time for me to do it, to build the skill of it. But a lot of people that I talk to before they either join working with me or they just ask questions, they'll say, hey, I'm a little 20 pounds, 30 pounds overweight. I got the kids, I got a home, business, job, career. I'm stressed all the time. It's like, all right, well, all that stuff is technically the bare minimum. Having a job, taking care of your family. I hope you do that, right? Like now we have to be extraordinary. We're going to have to do extra. And that might be adding a little 10-minute walk to your day. And then over time, you can add in maybe a 20-minute workout, whether it's body weight, something at home. But like there's levels to it. And the moment, let's say, for example, like somebody that just feels like they're struggling to get a little bit more motivation or more locked in with their efforts or outputs is just realizing that it's almost like an adaptation thing. You start at that level 4 and then add a little bit more, add a little bit more the next day, whatever that may be. And just realizing your inputs equal your outputs.
Have you had clients who start to see that progress, start to see the results, and they do start to get up toward that level of effort and also results, and then they can't figure out where to stop? I've experienced this in my life, mostly through my career, not any sort of personal development, but where it's like, okay, I'm probably doing as much as I can realistically do without going insane. I still don't feel like I'm there yet.
Yeah.
So I feel like I need to keep pushing. I guess maybe the best indication of that is when other people start saying, dude, are you taking this too far? I was like, oh, they don't understand. So have you ever had people just go crazy with it? Like they found this thing, they're working on themselves, they're working on mindset, and next thing you know, they're so far down the rabbit hole, like people don't recognize them anymore.
Yes. And the thing that I try and keep in mind, because a lot of people, when they join my group or my program, they'll have people around them that might chime in and say, man, you're doing a lot. Man, you're doing that. Well, that's a little overboard. Oh, you're waking up earlier. Oh, it might cause a little friction with people. But for the most part, people that might say that is because they feel uncomfortable because you are leveling up in some aspect and they're not. And they're like, oh, and not that they're always, the intention is bad, like they're trying to hold you back, but they just involuntarily just say something and they don't realize that it's inside thing for them or insecurity with them, that they're like, oh, you're doing a little too much. And then also the question should be asked, if what that person is saying to you, family, friend, coworker, whatever, and they're like, oh, you're just going a little overboard with it, and that you feel like they don't understand, that might be the case, because the question you might need to ask is, hey, would I want to trade places with that person? Is their advice holding any weight to me? Are they in a position that I'm in that I want to trade places? And whatever goal that is, whether it's in the financial space or physical space or spiritual space, whatever, is that person in a place that I would want to trade my life for theirs, the way they're living? If so, then maybe take their advice, but for the most part, nobody usually that's doing more or really crushing it is usually saying, hey, you're doing too much. I mean, there are things that you could be like overworking, and they could be like, hey, there's a more effective way to do it and make it fit. But for most part, people that are levels up, at least me, I'm never talking down to people. unless you're just overdoing something that could be done more efficiently. But typically it's people that are below. They're like, you're doing too much, And it's like, hey, what the hell have you done yourself, man? You're sitting there watching.
You're right. In my experience, it's not the people who are levels higher than you who are criticizing what you're doing. They might give you some feedback on how you're doing it. They might say, hey, I see you doing all this stuff. You're spinning your wheels. I want to tell you, like you said, get more efficient at it. And those are the times to really perk up your ears and pay attention. But I remember when I was part of my business, I'm a photographer. So there was something that someone said to me that was so impactful. And they said, you need to realize that there come several points in your business where you're going to want to and need to raise your rates to elevate what you're doing, to provide for your family better, but also to grow in your own career and be able to provide just things you haven't done before. And they said, just realize you're going to ostracize a lot of your referral base. Now, the people you work for at this level of price, if they refer it to their friends and then their friends are expecting kind of the same as what their friend got.
Yeah.
And then they come to you and they're like, oh, it's, 50% higher or double what it used to be. You're going to lose that referral base. And it's kind of the same with some of your friends and family when it comes to personal growth, because you might level up and people be like, oh, you're waking up earlier. You don't eat gluten now. What's going on with you? Is there something wrong? No, there's nothing wrong. It's just not the best option for my diet.
It's not serving you.
Yeah, it's not serving me. And then they're like, oh, so it immediately they feel almost like you're judging them.
Yeah, like you're better than them. What?
Yeah. You're like, what do you mean my casserole is not going to work for you anymore? And then the next thing you know, there's a little resentment that you don't even know about. You might drift away from some of those folks, even family, right? But expect it. Like if you see it coming down the tracks, you can handle it a little better when it does come up, but it's still worth it.
I've noticed that with me is when the alcohol comes out. It's like, oh, you're not drinking? You're not going to drink? And not that I'm sober by any means, even though I've had a past of hard party in my younger days, but occasionally I'll have a drink with my wife or something like that, or like going out to social events. That's a big thing that I think a lot of people can deal with, of being like, oh, you're not drinking? That's something I've noticed and a lot of my clients have noticed. The food thing is a big deal too, but I just want to reiterate is that knowing that people aren't going to understand it unless they're on the journey, and not everybody needs to be on it. There's certain times or triggers for people to start their own journey, but realizing it's going to be a lonely one at first. And as you develop yourself, doors will open, opportunities will open, new friends, new acquaintances will perk up through those new habits and those things that you attract over time. Not that you're going to skip out and cut out your old friends, but you'll just realize that there's certain times for those people.
Yeah. And I want to go back to your personal story on this subject, because obviously you left a party. So you probably left a bunch of your friends at that party. And then you had this dramatic event happen where everyone, there was no hiding it. Like you were in the hospital for months, right?
Yeah.
So everyone around knew that something had to change with Austin. And when they started seeing you make all of these changes, I want you to confirm it. Like a lot of those friends that you had kind of fell away just because of the changes you were making. But I'm guessing your family probably didn't. And so were they embracing all of the growth, all of the changes that you started to make, or did they kind of look out of the side of their eye thinking, okay, this is cool, but I'm going to keep my eye on Austin and see what happens?
Yeah, the friends definitely slowly drifted away. And that was probably more so me than them. Not that I was ignoring them, but I would just decline offers to go out or go party because I leaned into what made me feel good, consciously made me feel good, which was building myself. At this point in time, I was just regularly working out, and I felt good being able to work out. I felt good because I was being conscious and disciplined with eating cleaner foods. I noticed that I just knew something in me every time that I would make that deposit or cast that vote into myself when I'd take that action. I was like, man, I'm on the right path. I felt better. And I didn't feel that false sense of confidence. Like I mentioned earlier in the show, like it was sticking, and I felt better and better. I would show up a little bit better about myself every day. And the thing about the partying is if I went out and knew I was going to even have a couple drinks with those guys or people, the next day I wouldn't feel that good in the gym, or I wouldn't feel that great about myself. That sense of regret that I mentioned earlier, using regret as my guide, I just noticed that doesn't make me feel good, really. In the moment it does, but at the long game or tomorrow, I typically don't. And that affected my way I felt in the long run. So I just slowly it wasn't overnight, wasn't flicking the switch because I was still continuing way longer after the wreck to go out here or there, but I would still try and make an effort to stay with a routine of like exercising, watching what I ate. But over time, I drifted away from it because I just realized it wasn't serving me. And deep down, there was an internal thing that I had to do. And it took skills. Like I mentioned, reps of just every time you say no, it makes that no that much easier to say the next time. It's tough at first to say, no, thank you. Or no, I'm not going to do that. And at first, it's going to be tough. You're going to feel like you're missing out, whether it's missing out on some good food, missing out on some event or something. But I mean, think next week about it. Is that really, again, you can have fun and live life. I'm not some militant guy. I still live a normal life. It might not look like it, but I do. But I've learned how to navigate it better and have that internal talk with myself. Like, all right, what's going to make me feel good in the long run and try and get aligned with that.
Yeah.
Friends are slowly crept away though. Again, it was more so probably me than them.
Right. At what point in your journey, because you came out of rehab, you started working out in rehab and you started understanding some of the benefits of that. And then you came out, you started working out more, got the job at the gym.
Yeah.
Then you started helping other people. There had to be a point you realized that the working out part of developing yourself was really beneficial. You saw results and that built some confidence. And then at some point you started thinking, okay, mindset around this is also creating results. What was the day like when you kind of put those things together and realized that the physical development, the mental development all work together to get you the new life you were creating? It wasn't the new life that you had then. It was the new life you were creating every day.
It was like my conscience was like, oh, that would be, instead of just working these side jobs, irrigation, sheetrock work, working some courthouse work, I was like, what do I love to do? And can I make money from doing it? And what have I done with myself that I feel like I could help others with? I think that's a good question to ask for anybody that's looking for like a purpose or a passion. It's like, all right, what have I done or helped heal within my own life or correct within my own life, fix in my own life, and try and help others do the same. And that's a great way to be able to feel like you have some type of something to pour into every day instead of just showing up to my 9 to 5 because I'm collecting a check, which sometimes you might have to do still. And that's okay. There's bare minimum things we have to do, but there's things you can work on. And again, I didn't go full-time training either. I was still working some side jobs for the first couple of years of that to where I was able to support myself. But getting back to your question, I think it was a few years in to where I noticed the mindset was more than, I think for everybody, it starts off vanity, elementary. I want to look a certain way. I want to get this weight off. I want to get this stubborn body fat off, and then I'm good. Get to this goalpost. I want to lose the 20 pounds, 6-8 weeks, and then I'm going to go back to my old ways. Through seeing people yo-yo back and forth, and even myself for the first few years of going out and partying still, taking 2 or 3 steps forward during the week with the workouts and the nutrition, and taking 2 to 3 steps backwards on the weekend, going out and drinking, eating. It was a yo-yo of like not feeling great and knowing that like I was given that level 4 effort. And once I realized, all right, let me try and start saying no and start leaning into the things that I knew would make me feel better. At the end of the day, that's at least my direction of what my North Star is what makes me feel good in a good way of that. Not like, oh, I'm good because I'm jacked, I'm shredded or whatever. It's no, what makes me content with myself, what makes me admire myself, that I can show up, hold my own word to showing up, developing myself mentally, physically, and building myself, not sabotaging it. Thinking of every deposit that I make into the right bucket builds that point contentment level up. And every point that I put into the one where I skip, I break my own word with myself. And it can just be little things. And again, it's not being militant, but just knowing that every time you do take those actions, there are points added or deducted from your internal self-talk or the way you think about yourself. And the more you can put points into that one and make this bucket heavier than that one, you're in the right direction. It's never going to not have 0 in it. You're always going to mess up. You're always going to let loose a little bit, have a case of the fuckets or whatever. And that bucket might get a little heavier, but you want this one, the positive one, the deposit that you're putting into yourself to always have a little bit more. And just being aware about that. Again, I'm not like a hard line. It's horseshoes and hand grenades with me. We just want to be close every day. We just want to get close to that contentment or that alignment. It's not about being perfect. If you want to eat a little bullshit, eat a little bullshit. You want to have a drink, have a drink. But knowing that most of your actions need to be kind of on par,
Yeah. No, that's good advice. And when you start working with a new client, you work with men and women. Is there anything common that get them to come to see you?
Typically, again, it starts off as a vanity thing. They just don't like the way they look. And typically, think about it. It's bigger than just the way you look. It's the way you think about yourself. It's your mental, your mindset. Because if you don't like the way you look, most likely you aren't going to be liking the way you feel. And a mentor of mine had said this once. He's like, if you aren't happy with your presence, and I'm not saying you have to be some GQ model, but if you aren't happy with your presence or proud of it, you won't be able to be present. If you aren't happy with your presence, you won't probably be able to be present. You're always going to be sort of negative a little bit, or not negative self-talk. You aren't going to be like truly open to yourself and being happy, enjoying, if you aren't trying to take steps forward and again, to develop yourself. I keep trying to mention it because a lot of people look at me and call me perfect or some big jack dude. It's like about the muscle. It's not that. It is about following through on daily actual habits that bring contentment into your life, make you feel good.
So when someone comes to you like that and they say, you know, I've got these 30 pounds to lose or whatever, if they've got some fluff they want to get rid of, how do you work with them and set up expectations and say, look, a lot of people come to me like that, and here's the scenario of what happens more often than not. And then you start to talk to them about mindset. Do their eyes kind of glaze over? They're thinking, I was going to do sit-ups, and you're talking to me about mindset.
Yes.
What the hell?
So, and that took me a long time to do that myself. I just wanted to get the abs. I wanted to get bigger. I wanted to put on muscle, just like a typical younger dude. I wanted to get like more fit. To build long lasting results and like true results, it's not what or how, it's who. Who do I need to become? And the question you ask to that who is, all right, what would a person who dropped 30 pounds, what would that person do? And start to build a list of what that person would probably do. They probably wouldn't go out to eat. They probably would make food at home. They probably would make time for that walk in the evening. It's simple. We aren't like reinventing the wheel or like there's no hack. It's just making a question or asking yourself, all right, I want to lose that 30 pounds. I'm done with it. I hate looking down on it. What would a healthy person do? A healthy fit person do? And start doing that. And we can build a list off of that. All right, your day, backwards playing your day. My day is going to be different than your day, but I wake up at this time. I have this job, this errand, the kids, whatever. All right, I'm going to block off time right here in the day for a walk or to make my food or whatever. You know, case by case is going to be different, but typically it starts with who, not how. How do I do it? It's who do I need to become?
And that's powerful, because as soon as you decide on the who and figure that out, then everything can bounce back to that.
Yeah.
And it's not as much of a mystery, because you're like, okay, how is a big mystery. Sometimes you look at someone else, say, how did they accomplish that? Or how did they get from A to B? Then you start to look at, okay, who is that person?
Yeah.
What is it they're doing? Or what is it that they are thinking that gets them there?
Technically, there is a how. And the how is, how does that person conduct themselves daily? Then go off of it. That's how you should base it off of. And again, we're not trying to be that person. We're trying to find the habits that you admire in that person, that celebrity, or that figure that you envisioning yourself 30, 60, 90 days from now, that you're sitting there confident, chest tall. What is that person probably doing? And start to build a list off of that. And these are things that again, individually, we work together to try and figure out the fit within your day, to build your day, to build you pretty much, because it's daily effort. It's not something that you get to do when you feel like it. It's kind of done daily to build the skill, build the reps, build the consistency that compounds over time.
I want to ask this question, and it kind of simplifies things, but also some things we've already talked about are going to come up. But I wanted to just get your sense of, based on all the clients you've worked with, what are the top 3 breakthrough moments for them when they're like, oh, I get it now. Like, I came here for one thing, and now I'm starting to understand what it is you're talking about, mindset, seeing results.
The first couple things are building self-belief. A lot of people, even myself, I can have limited self-belief or positive self-belief on some actions and things. You know, if you're new to anything, you probably don't have much belief in yourself at all. So that's what I noticed the first. And we developed that by controlling those things we can control. It's like, all right, we can control our wake up time. For the longest time, we said, oh, I don't have time to do this. I don't have time to do that. All right, well, are we setting a consistent wake up time? Because we can control that. Even though it feels good to sleep in bed, it's warm, it's still dark a little bit, but if things need to be done to change, because nothing changes if nothing changes, then we're going to have to maybe develop a wake up time. If you're waking up at 7 normally, all right, let's add an hour to our day to where we can actually wake up. Actually, maybe get some forward thinking thoughts for the day of like, hey, how's my day going? Let me get ahead of it. Let me look at the planner, or let me not be rushed and frantic, have to wake up right before I'm supposed to get out the door, grab my coffee, not eat anything, and already be pissed off in a negative attitude and wonder why my day's shit. Because you set yourself up like that. It's something that you did. You can control that by just waking up a little earlier. And that's something I try and get all my clients to do immediately is we're trying to wake up. We're just kind of create a little distance in our day to where we can actually wake up and get thoughtful about the day ahead and be able to plan it a little bit better, take control of it. That is probably number one out the gate, because once they start to realize, damn, okay, I feel better just in general because I told myself I was going to wake up at 6 and not hit snooze. I woke up at 6 for the past 7 days. I feel damn good. I thought that was impossible a week ago. I used to be a slug. And now I'm actually getting up, even though it's still tough as shit to swing my legs off the bed and get up going. But once I'm up, typically people are like, damn, I feel great, like winning the morning. And that's something I've always noticed. And again, the days can always go to shit real quick. If a bomb goes off, you got something, a fire you got to put out or whatever, unexpected events. But my days typically are only as good as my mornings. My morning starts off late and behind and rushed. The rest of the day is typically going to be negative, and you can turn it around, but it's going to be really rough for most people to get ahead, get back on the ball. We're already behind it. And number two is doing some type of physical adversity, self-inflicted physical adversity, whether it's going for that 10-minute walk when you used to not walk at all, getting that 10,000 steps in. And over time of building that rep after rep, doing it, maybe you might not get 10,000 steps your first, even though it might be a goal of ours the first week or two to get an extra 10,000 steps a day. All right, well, now you're starting to hit it. And then you've hit it for 3 days in a row. You got a little winning streak going on. I notice these things, they start to click in people with their mind. Like, damn, I never thought I could do that. Damn, I did it for the past 30 days. I've walked 30,000 steps. How many miles is that in a month? I've walked X amount of miles a month. Damn, I've never walked that in my life. Again, these are small little wins, and that's what we want. Small wins. We don't want these mountain moving, huge leaps, big steps. I mean, they're very rare. It's typically the small base hits that are going to build that inner self-talk and confidence, that mindset. And that's what it's done for me and for everybody else. It takes time. Like learning how to play guitar for the first time. You suck at first, and hopefully over time you might get at least better. You're not going to be great. It depends. Some people are naturally good, but most people got to work for it. And it's daily work.
Really powerful. And that just keeps going back to the simple, not easy. It's simple. Just get up at 6 o'clock or 5 o'clock in the morning. Then you roll over and it's like, oh, this isn't easy. But when you do it, you're like, okay, I can conquer something difficult.
Yeah, something you said you were going to do. And like that reinforces the self-belief. You said you were going to do it. You did it, no matter how small. And over time, that you start to be like, oh man, I did that hard shit. What you're talking about is not a real problem, or that little thing that hurt me, it used to throw my day off. Now it's like, I can handle it now.
That's a really good point too. What's the best way for someone who's listening to get in touch and engage with the work that you do in helping people?
I am super active on Instagram. I post daily and a lot throughout the day within my stories, things that I do, some of my daily process, some things that work for me, thoughts, things that I'm working on. I also drop a lot of questions boxes in there. So if you ever have a question, you can drop in or shoot me a DM, but I'm super active on Instagram at @apageman.
Okay, good deal. And I'll have that in the show notes. I'll have your website here, Gym Flow Coaching. Is there anything that we didn't talk about that you think is important for people to hear?
Yes. There's one last thing, and it kind of hits on everything we've talked about or polishes it off to maybe get somebody to lean in and start taking action one day at a time. And it's a thing that I talk to my clients about. It's called a progress curve or progress arch. And let's think of the analogy of planting crops like corn in a field, the bare field, nothing on it, just soil, dirt. We put the seed in there, which is our results, and the water that we water it, that's the daily action. And over 5-7 days, you don't see shit come out the ground. You're like, what the hell am I doing? I'm not getting any results. You're like, but consciously, you should be doing these actions. I should be exercising more. I should be eating better. And blindly doing it, watering that crop, that seed, 7, 10, 14 days later, you start to see something, a little piece of green come out the ground. You're like, oh shit, I'm down 2 pounds. Or, oh man, my belt fits a little differently now. And you had to have that faith or belief of the work. Before you get the belief, you have to do the work. Before you get the belief, that momentum going in this arc that I'm talking about. Because then after the 14 days, you start to see that thing get a little bit taller as you continue to water it, nurture it, and put in those daily actions. And the next thing you know, you have crops 30, 60, 90 days from now that you're getting to reap and reward. And that goes for almost everything. You have to just start doing those actions that you should be doing most of the time. And if you don't know, find somebody that does know and time collapse it for you, or at least guide you if you're unsure. And there's got to be a lot of faith and belief in the work and the things that you should be doing before that crop comes to reap. So think of it that way. Like when you plant a seed, you're going to have to go through some time of watering it, giving it attention before you start to see something pop out the ground.
Yeah, that's one of the best analogies I've ever heard of personal growth. And you're right. If you've never planted something before and you don't really know, some things shoot up out of the ground and then some things take a long time. And so if you don't know, it's good to have someone who's been there or who has helped other people get there, like yourself, who can give you kind of the lay of the land and say, hey, look, you're going to be watering these crops for a couple weeks, but just based on the seed you planted and the results you want, and don't quit, because as soon as you start taking it back to level 4 effort instead of level 6 or level 8, wherever you need to be to see the results of these crops, you're going to stunt the growth. So that's really cool. I know anybody listening got a lot out of that part, and it sums up everything we've talked about. So Austin, thank you so much for being here on A Joyful Rebellion today. I am excited for people to hear this.
Thank you, James.
Thanks so much for joining me today. And if you have an extra minute, I have a favor to ask. Some of you listen to this show on Apple Podcasts, and a lot of you I talk to are on Spotify or Amazon. I'd love it if you would take just a second to leave a rating or a review. It lets the platforms know that listeners are getting value from the show and suggest it to others who are interested in similar content. And as always, if you have a topic you'd like me to cover, a guest suggestion, or just general feedback, I'd love to hear about that too. Connect with me on Facebook, Instagram, or at ajoyfulrebellion.com.